live. This is the Quick and Dirty. I am Laflamme, and this is Nikos Pidiktakis. Yeah, my
What's up,
camera is
everyone?
reversed. I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good yourself, man.
I'm doing good, thank you. This is the Quick and Dirty, the kind of show where I'm devoted enough to start a joint, but not finish it, so I'm in a right state of mind to do that fucking thing. This is the Your Information podcast for dummies in a hurry. So since we're in a
Indeed.
hurry, let's get into these fucking things. All right, so what are the subjects today, sir? I think you wanted to talk about Chauvin a little bit.
Yep. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about, everyone, and I'm hoping everyone is having a good evening so far. The first thing that I'd like to bring up in this episode is what's going on with the Derek Chauvin trial in the state of Minnesota.
Yep.
So what happened today, and much information was released yesterday on the mainstream and social media, is that Derek Chauvin, the police officer who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, has been declared guilty by the court that he was held in contempt of.
Yeah, that's interesting considering how long that took, right?
Yeah, because we have to consider the fact that this that incident in Minneapolis, which I think is the state capital of Minnesota, was it was the very incident which sort of reignited a new wave and a new sort of direction for the Black Lives Matter movement and for protests surrounding police brutality.
So what exactly started all that? Like, what happened?
In what sense?
I mean, what is the thing that started the whole movement? Like, what is the event? Like, just let's get into like the description of what actually happens. Yeah, the video.
Okay, so in that video, what happened was Derek Chauvin and three of his fellow officers from the police force in Minneapolis. Hello, Jess. How you doing? You have to tell us what time is it, please.
In Australia.
In Australia.
Yeah. Don't try to be smart with us with the time in Japan. We don't fucking care. All right, go on.
Yeah. So what happened is that Derek Chauvin had his knee on the back of the neck of George Floyd while George Floyd was being forced onto the pavement on the road outside of I believe it was like a dépanneur or like a convenience store where he tried to use a fake 20 to purchase some items.
Yeah. Which happened to pretty much everybody. That doesn't mean you're malicious. It just means you were carrying fake money without knowing. That could be that, right?
Yeah. So it could have been that, but again, the thing that sort of sparked a lot, and again, whenever these incidents happen, you often have people, bystanders on the side, like sort of filming the incident. Like, for example, again, what happened with George Floyd and many others that have happened before. So the court itself took a lot longer to process the case, given just how notorious the incident was, and given all of the public pressure from folks on both sides of the political aisle. So, like, you had Maxime Waters, the Democratic House representative, who effectively threatened a riot if the court and the jury, who made the final decision, because this was a jury trial.
Where did with that person did that?
Maxime Waters is one of the more well-known Democratic Democratic House representatives or congresswomen, like on the level of like AOC herself and a few others, who used her position as a member of Congress and her social media reach to effectively threaten a riot if the jurors themselves did not formally declare Derek Chauvin to be guilty. Though certainly
which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. Like an elected member of Congress, again, using their position to threaten or to instigate a riot, like that itself does not help out the situation at all. So from what I could tell,
what was the actual quote though? Like, was it something like if there is not guilty, there going to be a riot or
something to that effect? I don't have the exact words here.
I think I understand what she meant, but that wasn't the time for that.
I know.
Like,
that
was one of those times to shut the fuck up, to let justice follow its course.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for some of those comments, and at times even for me as a free speech absolutist, even for me, her comments sort of touched on that fine line between free speech and using that speech to advocate for violence and for
Mm.
destruction. That, of course, is never called for in any way, shape, or form. So, to indicate a couple of other important facts, and we're getting some of the facts from a CNN article that I found that perfectly described the situation.
Yes.
So he could face up to, given the three charges, he could face up to 40 years in prison for the first charge that was guilty for the second-degree murder, up to
Yeah.
25 years for the third-degree murder charge, which he was found guilty for, and up to 10 years for an additional charge of manslaughter. So that's looking at quite a lot of time behind bars.
Yeah, because one
Um,
thing to know is in the US they just accumulate the whole
yeah,
sentences. So
yeah,
basically, like that's going to be what 50 years at least.
more than that. And
What is it?
also, well, 40, 65, like about 70, like roughly
Oh,
75
I'm
years
a
in
retard.
jail.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 75 in jail. All right. So yeah, that's a
So,
lot of fucking
so
time.
Chauvin, that the officer himself, a very important fact to state is
Yes.
that he said that he did not want to testify himself in the court, evoking his Fifth Amendment constitutional rights to not incriminate himself in any way, shape, or
There were
form. So that
fucking
is a
video
very,
though.
I
There
know,
were fucking video. Like,
I
what
know,
could he have said?
I know, but he still evoked his Fifth Amendment
Yeah,
constitutional right
I get it,
in
but
that
on the
regard.
same time, like that,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that was kind of straightforward when the whole thing started, though.
I don't know for sure. Though, one fact that also has to be stated in this case is that before he was able to be out and about,
Yeah.
though, in terms of like he was out on bond, but then the judge in the case revoked the ability for him to be out and about on bond or to just be out in the public during his sentencing. So while the actual sentencing is being processed by the judge and by the court itself, he is being remanded to jail as well in a segregated unit because of the threat that his
Obviously.
presence could face, given the vast majority of people who are in prison in the United States, typically and unfortunately, are black and other folks of color, people of color, as
Yeah.
they're used as the term.
There's
Yeah,
there's two things against him. Like, first of all, he's a cop. Like a cop in jail, regardless of whatever the fuck you did,
yeah,
you're shanked for sure.
yeah,
And like what he did, like there's no like what's interesting with the Derek Chauvin thing is like usually when there that kind of event happens, like you could have like a bunch of conservatives that say,
yeah,
well, you didn't saw like the first half hour that led to that, but we saw the whole thing from
yeah.
different angle.
Yeah,
So
at least 10 minutes of video, or like it was at least 10 minutes of video. I don't know the exact number off
yeah,
the top of my head, but it was up to 10 minutes of video of
yeah,
just seeing the neck, like the knee on George
yeah,
Floyd's neck. And no matter what, like no matter where you come from, like that is just uncalled for.
yeah.
It
Like,
was it was just disgusting, and it caused me to shiver in a very negative, sorrowful way. I was like, what the hell is going on
yeah,
here?
the fuck's happening?
Like,
But yeah, like
yeah.
for the best defense they had going for them, like the
Mm,
cops, like that was not all of us, which basically
mm,
is throwing this guy under the bus and saying like, yeah, we're not like this guy. They're
yeah.
singling him out and being like, no, we're not like him. They're
Yeah.
not even trying to say, yeah, you didn't saw that, and trying to like kind of argue that it didn't happen. They don't even
Yeah.
deny it. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, what happened here to sort of like, just let me just check here. Like, I think it's going to take I from what I could tell, it could take a few weeks for the actual sentencing to be issued forth. So again, he will be
Hey man.
uh, good evening, Rapimu. Hope you're doing well. So it's going to take a few weeks for for the sentencing to be issued forth, and again, he will be remanded to prison again in segregated housing,
Yeah.
given the circumstances. Obviously, what happened triggered again a far more passionate version of the Black Lives Matter movement, calling for again like defunding the police in the United States. There are certain things there are certain points that, of course, there are certain, let's say, things that should happen, like far greater training for police overall. Like they need to de-escalate the situation before
Yeah,
doing anything else.
which require more fucking like money. You don't
Yeah.
defund the cop by saying they need more training. If they need more training, yeah, it means you need to put more cash so they can have better equipment. They can be better trained. Like you spend
There's
more
a
times with
I'm
them.
going to say this. They need less. There's this, I would say, very, very worrying trend in the United States where many police forces across the board are
Yeah.
getting armed with surplus military equipment that
Yeah,
the
that's crazy.
Pentagon, which is a Department of Defense,
Yeah.
is sort of giving like equipment that is no longer used in active duty and like theaters of war. So a lot of people are calling for the end to such a program.
Yeah.
Another thing is like police officers, to my understanding, in the United States have qualified immunity. So obviously, a lot of people are calling for the end for such qualified immunity. And as well, another thing that could be even applicable here in Canada, given what's going on in like Montreal and elsewhere across, is that often at times when there are financial settlements being paid out
Yeah.
for incidents like this, instead of pulling that money from the public taxpayer, that money should come out of the retirement funds, like the collective retirement funds that are set up for these police forces,
Mm.
so that they could tap into their future. Like they screw themselves up in the present, their own
Yeah.
financial future and well-being could be threatened by a settlement. So I think sort of implementing that would be a massive deterrent towards a
That
lot of the police brutality that unfortunately is among us today, and certainly making sure that every cop has body cams, which is just a no-brainer. We need
which
transparency.
Yeah, I see two things happening out of it. Like, because the problem is
Yeah,
that the cop unions and the cop mentality, where they think
exactly.
like they owe
Yeah,
more to the other cops than to the population, but you're supposed to be
exactly.
protecting the population. That's why you have like that
Yes.
special privilege of using violence, basically, to sort off
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
That's why we let you carry your gun. That's why we let you carry a fucking spray,
Yeah.
so you protect us. That's the whole social deal we're having. But
Yeah.
yes, so that's it's a no-brainer. So yeah, like going to pick like to make pay the whole corps of police when one of them is fucking up will make the whole corps accountable, because like that's something I've heard quite a time
I
ago.
know.
It's like
I
when you
know.
have when you have an employee that fuck up, okay,
Yeah.
but that keeps happening and happening and happening and happening. Like it comes to a point, it's no longer the employee's fault. It's the whole organization that doesn't work.
Yep. No, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Right.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So,
So, do you have anything to add about the Chauvin situations? Any updates?
not at this point. I think we got across many of the
All
points
right.
that we wanted to bring up. So I think we
So
should move on
let's.
to our next item. Yeah.
All right. So let's get closer to our homeland, Canada. So, as many of you knows, we had a budget as of lately, which is really, really important. Because basically the budget in Canada is a de facto confidence vote about the government. So if the government
Exactly.
lose that, we get into another election. So that's why this is a really
Yeah.
important subject. So, what are the main points from the Liberal government?
Okay, so first, again, to reiterate quickly, every single federal budget that is presented to the House of Commons after tax season, which is around April, May, is an automatic confidence motion. Normally, the government in power would have a majority in the House of Commons so that they don't have to worry about such parliamentary niceties. But because the Liberal Party lost the majority in 2019, they need the support of one of the other parties, be it the NDP, the Greens, the Bloc Québécois, or the Conservatives, to pass anything of consequence through the Parliament. So this budget is particularly important on a few things. So first and foremost, to indicate this is an historic first for the Canadian federal government, in that it is the first budget introduced by by a female cabinet minister, the Honorable Chrystia Freeland, who represents a riding from Toronto. She replaced the former Honorable Bill Morneau, who is Justin Trudeau's long-term finance minister from when he was first elected into power as PM in 2015 till roughly 2020, when Bill Morneau made the decision to retire to do other things, to, for example, head up the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, one of the non-governmental organizations out there that works internationally. So first to indicate, again, Chrystia Freeland is introducing this budget currently in the House. So some of the measures that needs to be noted, and there's one particular measure that I will discuss in a bit that is very important that could
Yes.
determine if we have an election in a pandemic setting or not. So some of the things that we see here is, of course, many businesses across Canada, that are both regulated federally and provincially, were receiving wage and rent subsidies to help pay for their employees and to help pay for the rents for where their businesses are based if they don't own the land outright, if they're renting it from a landowner, corporate landowner, and etc.
Okay.
So an
So what
extension
is
of
what is the extension?
it's just a general extension of many of those programs. So from what I've understood, for example, like 60 to 70% of an employee's wages would be subsidized by the federal
All
government in
right.
order to try to prevent as many people from having to be fired or laid off in order
Yeah.
to cut costs and to prevent those people from having to claim EI and other programs like the
Mm.
CERB,
Yeah.
for example. Another program,
So
another thing that is,
basically, if I understand, they figured that it would be better to just subsidize a part of their salaries than actually having to pay the CERB in their cases, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would guess that that would depend on what job it is.
yeah,
Because like CERB, it's
exactly.
2,000 per year per month. So
Yeah.
basically, it's like something around like what? Fucking yeah, around 30,000 per year. So if
Yeah,
you're doing like 50,000, that's
yeah.
depend. It will depends. All right. So next item.
Another item is that there's going to be an additional $101.4 billion in new spending over 3 years to fuel this continued economic recovery and to begin what they claim is the transition to a more green and environmentally friendly economy.
I have an
So that
idea for him. He could like I don't know, just sell one of his plane he's using on elections.
oh, that could be the that could be the
You see,
case.
that's
Yeah,
that's like the most liberal shit I ever heard. Like this guy has two fucking private jet to go move around Canada, and then he's like peddling
yeah.
advice or policies about the green and the environment. All right, go on.
Yeah, so one of the big things that is of particular concern for the more conservative among us, so like the Conservative Party themselves, and
Yeah.
even liberals who are considered blue liberals, who actually care about being fiscally prudent and like paying down national debts.
Uh huh.
Um, One major thing that is particularly scary and even for us, because again, us who are the millennials and the Gen Zers and everyone else, we're going to be paying all of this spending off one way or another by higher taxes and major cuts to spending, like a level of austerity that we have not seen since what happened in Greece a few years ago.
Yeah, it's already
So
started for the taxes though.
yeah, so for example, like the projected revenue for this year, because last year technically we did not have a budget. They passed several
Yeah, yeah.
emergency bills that covered it because of the situation. So the projected revenue for this year from like consumption taxes and all that is $355.1 billion, while total expenditures is going to be $650.3 billion. Like the
Yeah.
deficit has risen over $400 billion since the start of the pandemic in terms of all of the economic stimulus, CERB, and a whole host of other things like
And
helping the provincial governments procure the vaccines,
how
for
do they
example.
compare to other Canadian government, like in history?
From certain analysts, both political and like nonpartisan, basically Justin Trudeau, given his tenure as prime minister from 2015 till today, including the pandemic, he has added more government debt than all past prime ministers combined,
Jesus
which
Christ.
is
So
yeah,
no, it's a lot of fucking money for real.
yeah,
Like wow, we're fucked. There's no way we're gonna reimburse that like in a short term
yeah.
for sure.
So I know we
We're
can
gonna
certainly
eat
discuss.
dicks for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
So
fucking yeah. Go on.
So two more points that I'd like to raise on the budget, and certainly the idea of talking about the budget more in full can certainly happen maybe in a future episode. So potentially, so stay tuned on that. Two more
Yeah.
points that need to be discussed, and the last point will be very important. First, any and all sectors of the economy that are regulated federally, like telecommunications, so like Rogers and Telus and Bell and all that, the minimum wage for those sectors will be risen to $15 an hour.
Yeah.
So that certainly is going to be something that is going to be looked at. Another very, very quick thing that I will mention before I mention the last point, which is very, very important. For those who are claiming like EI, like employment insurance, other sickness benefits, typically EI lasted for about 15 weeks. Now there will be an extension to that so that you can claim EI for up to 26 weeks.
Yep.
So again, people who are still looking for jobs or still looking for work, certainly those benefits are going to be extended because again, a lot of people are in need of it.
Okay.
The last,
Just a
yeah,
quick question about that.
yeah,
Sorry to take a bit
no,
of
it's
time.
fine.
Yeah. So, do you know when it was supposed to finish for those benefits, like top of your head?
Not to my knowledge, I don't have any knowledge of that. It's just, I guess those benefits are cycled year round when the budget occurs, because usually governments can help fiddle like the eligibility requirements in every federal budget, like how to claim, like to modify the procedures and the requirements for it, as well as how much additional money could be funneled. So I don't
Yeah.
know the exact figures, but
Oh,
typically
yeah.
those changes could happen on a yearly or even on a every 2 or 3 years. Those changes can happen.
Because 26
Now,
years,
yeah,
like 26 weeks is basically the half of a year. So basically, it's 6 months. I asked that because that can remind me, like,
yeah,
I've read a National Post articles that was basically claiming that
yeah.
Canada would be back to normal like 6 months after everybody else.
Yeah, given the lagging
Yeah.
economic recovery and the continued lockdowns, and of course our curfew here in Quebec.
But the vaccine
Yeah,
rollout, that's the big one. The Oslo were to close the border, which is not something we would do normally. But yeah, in a context like
yeah,
you have a fucking virus coming from like different, like their country that's not doing so well, like France, like Indiana with their
Brazil especially
Brazil. Yeah,
right
there you
now,
go. China, like 1 years
of
ago.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So the last point that is of particular note, and this is the point that could trigger an election, is
yes,
that there's no promise for funding to implement a national pharmacare program. To very briefly explain what a pharmacare program is that, for example, for those like myself who are
yeah,
luckily and very, very happily employed still to this day on a full time, I pay in some money. I'm able to get most of my pharmaceutical, like my over the counter and even prescription medications for whatever reason covered by my employer, and I pay the difference. For people who don't have such programs, they could depend on the RAMQ in Quebec
yeah.
here, so the Quebec Medicare cards. And again, at least here in
RMQ.
Quebec, we
Okay, yeah.
have so at least in Quebec we have something like that where
Mhm.
people who don't have can present, and most of their drugs are covered by the provincial government. What folks in like the NDP, so Jagmeet Singh, are trying to push is for the entire country to have a pharmacare program so that everyone could have the ability to pay for access to needed prescription drugs for whatever reason, like pills, eye drops, what have you,
I'm sorry
insulin,
to
and all
interrupt you,
that.
but
Yeah,
that will cause a problem, like on a provincial level, because as we discussed earlier, like I think before one life, like the province are the one that manage healthcare. So basically, doing a
yeah,
pharmacare,
yeah,
national pharmacare, that will be an overlap on provincial powers, and that's something
yeah.
Quebec
Section
is highly,
92.
yes, Quebec is highly sensitive to that, and moreover. A lot of the fucking seats from the Liberal Party comes from Quebec, so always
Yeah,
because like the way look, I have the parliament composition right now, and I'm betting like the Liberal Party could stay in power with Le Bloc Québécois or something like that. It's a bit more seats than the fucking BQ.
yeah. Well, I know that the Liberals have like 156, 157 out of the required, I think,
Yeah.
170 seats that you need for a parliamentary for a working majority in the House. The
Yeah.
reason why I mentioned this point as being particularly important is that given what is going on right now with the Liberal minority, they've had to depend on the NDP for support in order to pass things that are considered confidence motions like the budget. I know for a fact that Jagmeet Singh, who is the leader of the NDP, is going to be hammering the Liberals to sort of change their position on
Ah,
this, and that
yeah.
if the Liberals do not change their position on this, the NDP could remove their support of the Liberal Party in the House, and I know for a fact that right now the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois seem to be in a loose, unofficial coalition, and that they are typically going against the federal Liberals at every turn, at every single confidence motion. So
Mm.
this could cause an election to occur in the next month or so, depending on how the votes go. So that, like, again, I think it would be best if we had a more comprehensive discussion in a future episode. So again, folks,
Yeah.
please stay tuned.
We might have a
So
guest for that too. So
yeah,
yeah,
I
we
have an
talk
idea
about
in
it.
mind. I just have to contact my friend who could potentially do this. So um where do you want to discuss, where do you want to go to right now, Joey? Like
All right. So the next subject will go even closer to our province, Quebec. I think there's two subjects we have to touch on. We have AstraZeneca rollout. So do you have any news with that?
Yeah, so what's going on, and to be brief about this, because again, we recognize we've discussed at length the two items before.
Yeah,
So for those
exactly.
who don't know, the Quebec government right now is trying to push as many people as possible to take the AstraZeneca vaccine, which some
Hmm.
people and some medical professionals have raised concerns over the issue of blood clotting for those who have received the vaccine. However, I've looked at
What are
statistics.
the odds, though?
I think 4 out of every, oh goodness, 4 out of every 1,000,000, or like 4 out of like I
Uh,
don't.
for fuck's sake. All right. Okay. Guys, let's be honest, okay? All your fucking life is boring, all right? It's all boring. Nothing's gonna happen to you. Nobody's gonna fuck your kids. Nobody's gonna piss in your food in the
Yeah,
restaurants. Nothing's interesting's gonna happen, all right? Especially a
yeah,
malfunction malfunction on a fucking vaccine. The odds as that your life might get a pepped up from coming from a vaccine not doing what it's supposed to do, fucking low. Get your
yeah,
ass vaccinated, all right? Get your ass
exactly.
vaccinated. I don't want to spend 2 years inside because you have fucking assholes
Yeah,
are shit at math.
yeah.
Sorry, had to get
No,
out
no,
of my fucking
no,
system.
no. It's fine. So just to briefly, there are more cases of like women who take the birth control pill. That there's a higher prevalence of blood clotting amongst women who take the birth control pill over those who get the AstraZeneca vaccine. So to
Okay.
just briefly describe this, they made the eligibility. They've lowered the lowest eligible age for those who could take it in Quebec to 45 and over. So for those who are 45 and over, they can make appointments to get the AstraZeneca vaccine at the vaccination centers and at pharmacies across Quebec. So at like, again, at Pharmaprix, Uniprix, Jean Coutu, wherever the vaccines are, like whenever like your flu, if let's say get the flu vaccine like I do, again,
Yeah.
folks, any protection is better than no protection whatsoever. Let's just get this done so that we can finally begin to open everything up, because I don't think any of us have any patience anymore for the lockdowns and for the curfews. Let's just get this done.
Yeah.
I
It's
saw, for
two shot,
example,
by the way. So even with the first shot, we're not exactly vaccinated.
yeah,
which which is kind of fucking weird. Why? Because last time I checked, we're the only province that wasn't giving away the second shot yet. Because you want to have like the highest number of vaccinated people with a first dose. Because
yeah.
that looks better. It's kind of
So,
pathologic the way we do that though. Like just
well,
why would we just give the first shot first? Like I would understand like the first shot gives you some protection, but must have some expiry date or something that like there's a reason why we need the two fucking shot, right?
yeah.
We're just giving away the first one. So we're not vaccinated at all.
If I think it's just like maybe some bureaucratic misunderstanding, or just the way that they're not considering something. Though I do know that certain guidelines have been updated given new information from the vaccine manufacturers themselves. That I do know. So again, just to resume this fact, and then we will go on to our last story. So
Yes.
AstraZeneca vaccine will be made available to anyone above the age of 45. For anyone watching who is above that age, get it, please. We just need to make sure that everyone is protected as much as possible. Because again, you're playing a game of Russian roulette. Many people who have gotten the coronavirus, no symptoms. Me, for example, last August, I had all the symptoms, however
Mm.
mildly. So again, don't play with your life, folks. Just get it so that we're above and beyond this. And so
Yeah,
uh,
it's like taking a bullet, basically. Like you won't receive it in between the two eyes, but you might receive it also like in the fucking stomach. That's gonna hurt. Like the point is, you don't know what's gonna happen with that fucking thing. Just get vaccinated, get on with it, and
yeah,
there you go. Last subject of the night is still again Quebec. It's about those piquists that won't give up on preventing us to speak English. Can you say more about it?
yeah. So to be brief about this, the Parti Québécois, which sadly they're still around, but hey,
Well,
that's how things work, unfortunately, in
that's
Quebec.
one of the thing. The old racist boomers, they won't die, so that's why they still have piquists voting for these assholes.
Well, right now, I think their support has completely collapsed across the province. Like they're basically in the Gaspésie and in areas like outside of Quebec City. Like they no longer have any presence or any ability to regain any of the seats that they've
Yeah,
had around the 450, and even like the few seats that they had here in Montreal. Like the CAC has completely annihilated them on summoning the nationalist vote here in Quebec. But
yeah.
regardless, so what the Parti Québécois leader and that party has done is that there's this new rising tension on the issue of applying Law 101,
Yeah,
which is our
English Bishop.
language law, and the
Yeah.
OQLF, those fuckers,
Hmm.
for wanting to push Law 101 and its implementation on the English CEGEP, so like Vanier, which is the CEGEP that I went to, Dawson, John Abbott, and other English CEGEPs across Quebec
Okay, just
that
explain
have.
how would it work. Like, what would it change in term of like, let's say, a francophone or allophone going in a English cégep?
Well, there are I would say limited spaces for francophone students who would like to go to English CEGEPs. Like the English CEGEPs would like to prioritize as many of their spaces as possible for those who came in from the English system. So again, for me,
Mm.
like I was lucky in that my mom, who was born in Quebec before the implementation of Law 101, she used her certificate. She got me into an English elementary school, an English high school. Then I got into Cégep Vanier in Ville-Saint-Laurent, and then I was able to go to Concordia University
Honestly,
after. So I was able.
it's fucking crazy that you need to show certificate to a bureaucrat just to choose the school where you send your fucking kid.
I know,
It's fucking nuts.
I know. So the Parti Québécois again has set like again the lead like I'm sort of summarizing what I'm seeing on a Montreal Gazette article that is summarizing this. So, like the leader of the Parti Québécois is defending his decision to reverse course and says
Pascal
and
Béruga,
say
I think his name is.
yeah Paul Saint Pierre Plamondon is the new leader of the Parti Québécois.
See, so relevant that I can remember his fucking name. Go on.
Yeah, so if this would apply, any all francophones and allophones, like those who recently landed here in Montreal and the rest of Quebec, they would no longer be able to go to Vanier or to Dawson or to John Abbott or any of the other English cegeps that are here in Canada, which is absolutely ridiculous because you have a lot of people who are coming from around the world who
Yeah.
aren't coming from countries that have like a romantic based language, which again is French. Many of these
Mm.
people are coming from countries where English was taught as a second language, like China, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. Like Vietnam is another story, but like
Or they
other
just
countries.
speak their main language and he came to Canada thinking that it was an English country because fucking North America, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's
So
that too.
the CAC is sort of, I
Yeah,
would
trying to
say
do that.
they try to, but then again, there's a lot of pushback from the CEGEPs. Like there was this issue with regards to like denying Dawson College an approved $100 million grant so that they could do some renovations and upkeep and other things. Like Dawson College, to my understanding, is the biggest English CEGEP in Quebec.
Yeah.
So that certainly has happened. Folks, we need to stop.
What?
We need to stop preventing people from getting an education in the system that they want to. Like
Yeah, that's
honestly,
because the main problem with when you learn English from the French program, and I don't know how it is on the English for learning French, is you don't get enough immersion. They don't spend enough time with like talking English, like getting into conversation with actual Anglo people. And going to those cégep, that's the only way we could like actually get access to fluency. Our
Yeah.
English courses are not enough. You'll
Yeah.
never be bilingual just by following the program. That's not gonna work. So
Oh, yeah.
basically, they're preventing us from a easy and cheap opportunity for French people to be actually fluent in both languages, to be bilingual. So the government is preventing French Quebecer to actually have an extra tool to be able to be
More.
more, yeah, more complete to have an extra skill.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
Like the more languages you know, and for me, like I technically consider myself trilingual because again, French, English, and because I'm Greek, though my Greek certainly has a lot of room to improve, but the more languages you know, the better you're off. I understand past historical circumstances. I do understand that, and there are certain things that you can do to protect the language, but at the same time, like when you do stuff like this or like forcing small independent restaurants during a pandemic to change their menus to French or to like come the hell on. Not to mention that the
Yeah.
OQLF has
You're not
already.
you're not trying to defend the language. Like it's not helping. You want to know how you want to help? Well, make sure the pop culture of Quebec is interesting, is enticing to us, that we want to watch it, and not
Yeah.
like we feel we have to because we're the guy
Yeah.
producing those fucking things happen to speak the same language as I do. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
I
Stop
know.
with the nonsense. Just make us love our language with something like cultural product of quality.
Like for me, the only French programming to say this, and again, I say this as like a someone who's on the more anglophone side of things. Like the
Yeah.
only French that I'm watching, like I'm actually actively seeking out, is watching like Mike Ward's Suzakut or Pantelis' French cast, and sometimes like on occasion when I'm feeling particularly nostalgic, like just for the shits and giggles, like I'm watching, if you remember Télé Français with
Yeah.
the Ananas, like that, and on occasion watching and reading the French news because I want to have an understanding of what's going
Yeah.
on here in Quebec. But it's like you need to make the like okay, maybe watching the Big Brother Quebec, given what happened with like the drag queen Rita Baga who was involved in that, and
Yeah.
that like sure that's okay, but there's no purpose for me to seek it out even more. Like I
No,
don't. There's
we
not
don't have a K-pop that like something like K-pop that make
exactly.
like foreigners to like something about your culture, so they will like Rammstein for me. Basically, when I've learned about Rammstein, I've learned a bit of German because I was
Yeah,
trying to figure out what the songs was about.
exactly.
That's how you make your language and your culture relevant. It's by making sure that you have a pop culture that makes sure that people wants to speak it, to learn
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But you're not doing it by forcing and like preventing
I know.
people or putting them in categories. That's not gonna work. But yeah, the old fucking old boomers cunts, they won't die, so we're stuck with the whole fucking thing. And
The one idea that has been proposed, though I don't think that this idea will be accepted, is the federal government could step in and say, "Hey, listen." Though again, it's the federal government encroaching upon language issues, and of course, Quebec is always going to be all uppity on that. But
yeah,
for the sake of argument, like if we could just have free language classes provided by the federal government, so
yeah,
like people in Quebec who want to learn English, it's provided for free, no cost. And for the rest of Canada, so like Ontario, Manitoba, and the other provinces, if for those people who want to learn how to speak, read, and write French, that kind of instruction could be provided for free. It's always been
better.
I've always been a super idealist that like a Canada across the board should fully embrace bilingualism. Like the rest of Canada learning how to be fluent in French, and for Quebec to finally be fluent in English. Because if all of us were perfectly bilingual, and given that more and more Canadians are becoming trilingual because many more Canadians are not
Yeah,
from, the Quebecois and the Anglos, the fact that many of us are coming from other countries, like myself, like I'm a second generation Greek Canadian, the fact that more of us are becoming are effectively trilingual, we would be the most competitive across the globe. Like if we fully embrace
exactly.
that during the post-pandemic recovery, we could be the most competitive, and we would destroy other countries in terms of competitiveness because of the language, because of the languages and what we can speak. So to sort of
But I
sum up my feeling on that, if I could just say
go on.
this one
Yeah,
last
yeah,
point:
go on, man.
good ideas don't require force
Yeah,
to implement. So it is a good idea to preserve the French language. I get past historical realities, and again, all of English Canada surrounds Quebec, and you have the United States down south. But some of the measures that are being implemented are too heavy-handed and lack logic and common sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna end it at that in terms of my
All right.
feeling on it.
And I do like to add to what you said about the national policies to like make sure that everybody got quality linguistic courses through the
Yeah.
country. We should
Mhm.
we should like finance like scholar trades. Like for example, somebody from Quebec can go like let's say to Alberta to get better at English,
Mhm.
like to get an immersion. Like everybody get access to our immersive experience. Like you send students
Yeah.
across the board. I mean that's one of the main because let's face it, most bilingual people are around Quebec and Ontario, and the reason are
Well,
pretty obvious.
Ottawa, Montreal, like that Laurentian corridor
Yeah.
is where the majority of the bilingual folks are.
Yeah, which only makes sense. Like, think about it. If you're at Medicine Hat, there's no fucking way you're gonna hear any French language.
Yeah.
There's no
Or
way. So if you don't have any, like Quebec City, you cannot fully be bilingual because there's no enough opportunities to speak English there.
yeah, like I went downtown yesterday while spending some time with my girlfriend Melanie's birthday to get to do shopping. And when I was in many of the shops that we went to so that she can get some clothes and do other stuff, like I heard many of the shopkeep saying bonjour hi, and for me that's perfect
Yeah, that's
because
fine. It's
you don't know.
Montreal is a bilingual city.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a French city, it's not an English city, it's a bilingual city. You have
yeah,
two communities that live side by side.
yeah.
Like your Anglo people are not going away, French people are not going away.
I
So
know,
we better figure out a way to live together and stop playing fucking chicken.
I know.
All right, so on this inspiring fucking thing, that was the not so quick and dirty, the information podcast for dummies in a hurry. So, anything to add? Where can we find you?
All right, so folks, you can just find me on Instagram, Captain YOLO 562, all in small letters. The next episode of my podcast, The Adventures of Captain YOLO, will happen next Saturday, May 1st, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Shut up, Raul. We're finishing this thing. All right. All right. So, for those still listening, don't miss Saturday. I'm having as a guest Ash Dawan, Ash Ahmed, a local comedian, and also on the Sunday we have a guest now. It's Luke Lindale, a comedian from Toronto. He's really talented. He got a lot of experience and he's doing a lot of online shows. Like one of them is Luke Lindale do your jokes. At first, I was kind of like dubious of doing it, but it's pretty cool actually. So, on this note, guys, please share and subscribe. And thank you. Fuck you. Bye.